Hey, so I've got a mate, Eric, and we decided to swap concept art and then build a design based on each other's ideas. Eric gave me this really cool illustration. It looks straight out of a Warhammer Online concept art book, and I love it. I also love it because it sort of turned out to be the missing piece in a puzzle that's been destroying me for a couple of months. My process building this house was pretty carefree. I made it out of scrap foam, sort of treating it a bit like making a sculpture. I've made houses in the past with fully accessible interiors, but today was more about form over function. I am really thankful I did have some past experience though, because working out scale is a massive pain in the ass. Once I had a rough shape, I covered it all in balsa wood strips. I like balsa wood because it's easy to work with, because it's soft and it holds texture well. I'm not really concerned about making things super neat and tidy because I'm going to cover up any poorly cut edges anyway, but I am taking my time to get the shape of things right, like the roof, with the overhang and the nice bow in it, that sort of stuff. To make the foundation edge parts of the house, I'm not sure what they're called, I decided to sculpt them. Before my Nurgle project, I would have never ever considered sculpting as an option for this sort of thing. Instead, I would have 100% used balsa wood or EVA foam. But I think sculpting brings so much life and style and character to a piece, and I'm really excited and sort of proud that I tried it. I used a 50-50 mix of Milliput and grey stuff, and it sort of turned out to be the best of both worlds. It was soft, slightly tacky, with a nice, easy to get smooth finish. The epoxy mix did become unworkable in about 45 minutes or so I had to move fast, and I would always, without fail, mix too much. I made a sculpting tool from green stuff, and as a result, it's sort of soft and flexible, and it turned out to be awesome for making little knots in the wood. So the people inside the house could breathe, I made windows, and then I proceeded to quickly cover them up. I hand sculpted a little chimney and I used a rock to get a nice texture. I felt really empowered knowing I could solve so many problems with sculpting now. I'd totally recommend it as a tool to put in your tool belt for making stuff. This sort of sculpting is really just pushing and pulling around material until it's the right shape. There's not a lot to it. I figured making a door with epoxy rather than wood would make things a little bit easier to shape around the weird door hole that I made. But I think the more stylized look of the door actually provides a really nice contrast to the perfect look of the wood panels. It's shingle time. I used a template for shingles I made ages ago. It's in my medieval house template and guide. You can find it on miscast.co. I mentioned it earlier. It's like 50 pages long. It took me months to make. For the shingles, I used 1mm EVA foam because it has a little bit of thickness to it compared to cardboard, and it's stretchy and flexible. And the very cool thing about it is, with a little bit of heat, the edges of it, once cut, sort of round themselves out, which means making shingles is pretty faster because you make strips of them and then you cut them out and then they sort of get stuck together. But then you apply the heat and they separate and they turn into their own individual shingles. It's really fun. Shingles take ages to lay out, but I think the end result is really beautiful. The ones from my guide are slightly bigger. These ones I instead printed out about 90% of the size. The smaller you make them, the more realistic they look, but you're adding way more time to the process. The whole shingle game is all about compromise. This is a centerpiece in my army, so I want the shingles to be small and sort of realistic, but for a table of terrain, I'd certainly go significantly bigger. So, remember when I said Eric's drawing was the missing piece in the puzzle? Well, you see, I've been sitting on this problem for a while. In my Nurgle army, I've been missing a unit that I need that I don't really want. A soul grinder. I don't know what Games Workshop was thinking when they decided the most ugly model they've ever made was also fit for the fantasy world, but everything about that model just screams 40k to me. I get the lore. The lore is it's sort of dumb, but the model is dumber. So my idea was to put a circus wagon on top of a spider and then add a cannon to it and call it a soul grinder. But Eric's concept has really spun that idea into a new direction because we both share a love for Mordheim, a city corrupted by chaos. My Nurgle army is all centered around Mordheim. That's why they walk on cobblestone streets. Well, what if instead of a circus wagon, the spider was carrying an uprooted house on its back? Then I thought maybe a snail would be cool because it's like, snails have houses and stuff, like they're little caravan boys. It also would be Nurgle-y. But then I thought, well, I can't really have a snail because soul grinders meant to be really fast. Then I thought, well, maybe I could have like a giant frog or toad thing. But then, while I was pondering this, I'm like, I need to have a break, get out of the house. I went to my local hobby shop and I found this really awesome kit. I bought it not knowing what I'd ever do with it. It sat on my desk for about 2 hours before it called to me. This thing is weird. Rubbish movie, awesome design for an alien. I found this fun head from a Duncan Luca 3D print and I put the house on its back, and oh my god, it's perfect and horrifying. I mean, just look at my dumb face. This is the face of a good idea. Also, this model came with a base, so obviously I had to use it. I covered it in my spare and miscast, like miscast as in like it didn't really work out. Cobblestone bases, and I sculpted some more cobbles to connect them, and then I added some modeling compound, and then bam, now we're cooking. I did some cleanup sculpting everywhere and tried to make the house look like it was bound to the back of the demon with its flesh. Super gross, I know, but anyway, with a bit of PVC tubing, I made a big cannon to put on the front of the house because the soul grinder has a cannon. It's admittedly very small, but like a big comical cannon seemed really cool to me. I also added some little welts and barnacle looking things to make it look a bit more Nurgle-y. Maybe like during the night, like the demon sleeps under the house and it's just like, I don't know, getting carried away. Paint time. Bit of black paint and white spray paint as a base. I decided to paint each panel individually with a range of browns to break up the really large flat surfaces. It also gave everything a bit more of a painterly look, which I find way more fun. The trick to most of this paint job was a glaze medium, which makes the paint translucent and as a result makes everything a bit desaturated and washed out as it reveals the paint underneath it. I wanted to create a contrast between the house and the soon to be very vibrant creature below, because after all, the house isn't a demon, what's carrying it is the demon. So I want to have a separation, a clear distinction of both. Also, I want it to be like, that demon is carrying a house on its back, not like when I put it on the table, it's like, what? What is that massive thing that's bigger than your Great Unclean One and your Nurgle Giant? Anyway, I really love color. I also really love the Grimdark 28 miniature community, so I wanted to create like a halfway combination of them both. The windows were more of a stylistic choice. I was going to fill them with resin and make them realistic, but I ended up liking the white, dirty look from the primer. So I just rolled with it and ramped it up a little bit with a bit more white paint. Time for oils. Off camera, I sprayed a protective varnish first before applying oils. Otherwise it'd eat through the paint below. It also made the colors of everything richer and tastier. That's probably not the right word. It made it look really good though. Brown makes everything look a bit more grim, but I really like that it still revealed a little bit of the color behind it as well. This dust I'm putting on the roof is tile grout, and when I matte varnish everything, it's going to activate it and turn it into a bit of a grimy, dirty, sooty, like sort of mildewy mess. A sprinkling of flock and rocks really brought things to life. My mate Luke makes this like ready mix stuff, and I use it because it makes me look like I know what I'm doing when I totally don't. As a final touch, I added some gloss varnish to the demon's eyes, which makes them look wet and oddly makes the eyes sort of follow you no matter where you're looking at them from. It's a really weird thing to look at. And there you go. 100% the best thing I've ever made, and it makes me so happy, and it's like a combination of all my favorite hobby things, sculpting and converting and terrain making, and on top of all that, I can field it in the games that I'm playing. I'm happy. Things did sort of escalate from the original drawing that Eric sent me, so let's see what he thinks.
Wow! I love
It's
it.
pretty crazy, isn't it?
That is fantastic. That is so cool, man. I knew you were going to do something like a twist on what I sent you, but that is like the tripedal walking. Like I really did think you were going to still make it a wagon, like, but that is great, man. You've outdone yourself as well.
Things very quickly escalated.
I gave Eric some art too, and he also coincidentally described what he made using my art as the favorite thing he's ever built. So clearly we're made for each other, so go check his out. Okay, thank you, bye!